Being a robot, Astro needs to refuel his energy source, but since no tool exists to maintain his strength, Astro will eventually die. Knowing this puts Astro in a state of depression as he knows his approaching death will occur within 6 months. Yet to add further salt to his wounds, Astro sees the foul nature of humanity during wartime, specifically Vietnam. Being unable to withstand their suffering, Astro puts his life in danger, as the more energy he uses, the closer his time expires. It is in this story where Astro is viewed as a messiah-like character, as his intentions are of self-sacrifice. Yet this character is just Dio, only nicer. Actually, in one of the last pages, there's an illustration of BT which heavily resembles Dio Brando. One design choice that I really enjoyed are these checkerboard arrows which would appear whenever BT was scheming something. It's featured in several pages, and it's a shame Araki didn't keep this concept in his work in JoJo. Although, these arrows made a brief appearance in episodes 1 and 2 of Phantom Blood. As you may have guessed, the English dub is highly recommended due to its cultural blend and appearance, but also suits the slang language of the show. The most surprising performance comes from Monica Rial, who's known for being very high-pitched in roles, but goes into a more deeper and aggressive voice when acting as Michiko.
You're up next, big boy!
Michiko and Hanshin also contains a very mean-spirited story, as countless atrocities occur with almost every episode, ranging from gang violence and realistic portrayals of the criminal underworld. Many Ringing Bell scenes have this Disney-like cuteness, but also carries a more graphic tale of realism. While it's not uncommon for a children's story to be darker in tone, as shown through various Disney films and other works of animation, Ringing Bell should not be kid-suitable. In short, Ringing Bell is certainly a film that makes a WTF ending, but demonstrates how someone could lose sight of their goal and gradually becomes their own worst enemy. The story is heavy despite its childish exterior, but will leave you feeling a bit down once finishing it. This is the opposite of the manga, where Akira becomes more demonic as he tries to protect Miki and the human race. In a way, both characters are so different, yet so similar, as the priority is saving Miki, but both versions tell a different moral. The anime speaks of rehabilitation, while the manga preaches of corruption. Or basically, the anime creates hope, while the manga leads to despair.
That's right!
Above everything else, the 93 OVA succeeds in its climax. While I admit the Vanilla Ice fight is pretty boring in OVA format, the moment New Kakyoin shows up to save Joseph, all the way to the end of the Jotaro vs Dio fight, becomes an addicting and fangasm experience. It is structured with such care and excitement that every new thing that's not in the manga works better, especially with all the effort placed into the animation. While the 2000 series has a cleaner and slick look, it sadly has less impressive movement when compared to the 93 OVA. In short, Iron Wind is a womanly series as the artwork starts to change during chapter 15, and by the 20s you can see vast improvement in muscles and character designs. Which makes sense as the characters should develop a more muscular physique as they continue to work out. There's been a few fights, with the most recent preliminaries offering a bit more aggressive content, but don't expect this to be like Baki the Grappler where people are ripping faces off. Have you ever wondered, what if Blackjack was a manlier character? Or, what if Kenshiro instead became a doctor? Well, the answer to those what-ifs are found here in Super Dr. K, where our main character Kazuya is half Blackjack, half Kenshiro, all hero. The series is a medical drama, having many scenarios of morality and the perseverance of life. The stories featured thus far have similar themes of anti-war and the constant battle against corruption, as featured in Osamu Tezuka's manga. I found myself enjoying this series since it incorporated a manly pirate, very gruesome science fiction, a war story, and a giant Moby Dick cyborg to tie it all together. Captain Ahab is really manly, being the most interesting character in the story. There's a scene in episode 15 that really sums up his opinions of God, thus possibly being the best scene in the anime. Whether he's being serious or goofy, he still possesses a charismatic charm, a bit similar to John Silver from the Treasure Island anime of 1978. Many characters of this series are from different ethnics and various species ranging from aliens, animals, humans, cyborgs, robots, toilets, skyscrapers, and even a fucking banana. However, not many people are aware that Ultimate Muscle is a sequel to the legendary series Muscle Man, aka Kinnikuman. The original story stars the legends in their younger days. The Millennium Earl is such a monstrous villain fit to be called the devil, even with his constant biblical references the series is known for. Likewise, the family of Noah are all intimidating villains, with Rogue Camelot and Tiggy Mix serving as the more popular characters due to their constant clashes with Alan Walker. Alan as a hero is one of the darkest characters to come out of Shonen Jump in recent years. While we still have tragic characters such as Gintoki Sakata from Gintama, Alan Walker definitely has a tough journey where the fate of humankind is placed upon his shoulders. With the series' recurring theme of death, Alan Walker has a sense of destiny that could result in turning himself into what he most despises. Balsa is a womanly character that was honestly my only interest in watching the series. Perhaps I expected too much from the anime, but Balsa is certainly the most captivating character, more so when we learn about her past. These specific episodes contain incredible writing bearing some of the most dramatic moments of the story. Interestingly, these episodes are almost unrelated to the plot of the series, giving the appearance of a standalone episode. Her English actress, Cindy Robinson, gives an astounding performance to the character, especially in episode 19. The masculine charm the series contained from parts 1, 2, and 3 gradually vanishes, but the characters play a bigger role in the actual conflict. Josuke initially debuts as a fusion of Joseph and Jotaro, bearing his dad's sense of humor and easygoing nature, while expressing an angry and manly disposition with a delinquent attire, much like Jotaro. In fact, there are some panels where their faces are so alike that it feels that the series had two Jotaros. However, as the story progresses, Josuke loses his muscular build and becomes less stoic, essentially turning into this generation's Joseph Joestar. Speaking of Emeraldas, while she is present throughout the entirety of the manga, she's not exactly the main center of attention, and the same goes for Hiroshi. I feel it's the people they meet who tend to steal the spotlight, but also allows the reader to witness how Emeraldas reacts to certain situations, hence showing her womanly side. Essentially, Bao is a sci-fi horror, but also carries the feel of being a superhero story or something out of tokusatsu. Much of this is due to the narrator explaining various details about Bao's anatomy and biology, but the dialogue itself can be a bit over the top, but it works. Not to mention, Araki's stable of having his characters constantly pose adds to the superhero flair of the manga. According to the JoJo Wiki, there's a statement where Araki thought of himself as very ignorant towards women. Upon examining the series, I can understand what he's saying. In my opinion, Araki felt that Gorgeous Irene was too much of a woman stereotype, with the best example being the makeup power. Not to mention, the character Irene is described as a skilled assassin, but a very gullible person, to the point where it makes her seem somewhat stupid. I'm not sure whether this personality trait was supposed to be a running gag or an intentional weakness to the character's unbeatable fighting style, but since there's only 2 chapters, there's not much to discuss. The writing itself is pretty average, and the quality really shifts with each chapter, but I think the best part is found in chapter 2. In this scene, Joan d'Arc is put on trial by demons, in which they engage in a dreadful conversation about war. Despite being an average tale, what Shin Devilman excels in is reminding the reader of world history and the tragedies that bestow different cultures and nationalities. At the end of the day, these chapters are based mostly on real-life events and real people. While the content is certainly fiction, the final page tells us the truth, showing a bloody history of war, further validating Go Nagai's own quote, "There is no justice in war, any war." Which led to one of the strongest points of the series that has nothing to do with analysis or critiques, being emotions. From its early Mad Max content, you wouldn't find it possible for this series to be a very tragic battle shonen, which is due to the character deaths. While not every death is prophesized beforehand, these manly departures create an attachment to your very soul. Unlike the battle series of today, when a character dies, there's no coming back. Fist of the North Star is one of the few shonens that don't pull their punches in their content. Whether it's violence or tragedy, you will remember it. Many characters go through hell in their pursuit of peace, making their final moments admirable. In the case of Tatakae Ramen Man, the anime does carry those same traits of violence, but focuses heavily on martial arts in contrast to Kinnikuman Man, which was about superhero wrestlers. Regardless, there's still some hints of wrestling found throughout the Ramen Man anime. The tone of Tatakae Ramen Man is more serious than Kinnikuman Man and has a better balance of humor. Since this is a Yuta Tamago anime, some over-the-top things are bound to be found. Many of the martial arts in the anime are very ridiculous, which makes it stand out from other battle shonen, but be prepared for some very hilarious fighting styles. This film offers more of an inside look on Blackjack's fragility as a human. Despite being known as the surgeon with the hands of God, Blackjack is still a mortal man, having to make difficult decisions for the greater good of the world. This story challenges Blackjack not only mentally and physically, but even spiritually, as his will must be fortified with an unwavering might before he can save others. A woman named Jo Carol Brain requests the help of Blackjack. Being forced into helping, Blackjack cooperates with the surgery while trying to discover the cause of these deaths. Operations have been hopeless, developing a strain on Blackjack's will as a doctor. Various patients are suffering, and he can't do anything about them. As the film progresses, we learn more of Jo Carol and her motivations for being a surgeon. Much of the movie plays as a mystery, so there isn't much I can say about the plot without revealing its secrets, but what I can say is the film succeeds in delivering its revelations in a horrifying way. As mentioned earlier, the action and fights are the best additions in Golden Wind. I think everyone can agree that the fight with Beshi and Prosciutto is a great representative of an excellent fight in all of JoJo. It's a battle that goes back and forth between these four stand users, offering plenty of surprises, physical fighting, violent injuries, heart-beating suspense, and even manly moments. Many of the other battles feel the same way, often ending with a standoff, similar to Jotaro and Dio at the end of their fight, where the conflict is decided on whoever strikes the hardest. In short, Part 5's fast-paced action was a breath of fresh air and should keep everyone entertained. An obvious change from its previous parts is the art style, as it's now very fabulous, with characters dressing in very eccentric yet expressive fashion sets. Much of the content is episodic in nature and deals with slice of life, with the beginning putting some people off. Well, it's a matter of opinion why people lost interest in the beginning, but the answer is simple. My Love Story is a manly romantic comedy. Unlike the author's other works, Oro Monogatari is very masculine in tone, especially with those early episodes. Of course, the manliness is always welcome, as I'm more familiar with series that boast testosterone. The romantic comedy you can compare this series to is My Bride is a Mermaid. Despite its girly-sounding title, there's a surprising large amount of manly anime references, which made it hilarious for me. But despite being made in 2012, JoJo is very different even among manly shonens. But all manly series do share certain traits, therefore, Part 1 and 2 of JoJo bear a heavy emphasis on the human physique, chivalry, pride, honor, and of course, manliness! What makes JoJo different from other manly titles is the series having an expressive art style in either colors or posing, but also tend to make references to various bands, musicians, and fashion brands, such as the characters named AC/DC and Vanilla Ice, which mark the more obvious examples. Each part of JoJo bears various differences, resulting in a very diverse fan base, but this 2012 anime adaptation is what starts it all. Blackjack's character is presented as more mysterious than his other interpretations, but this OVA better introduces the character tropes for all related Blackjack material. For example, in the first episode, we have a better understanding of Blackjack's employment, such as taking requests via phone call and shamelessly asking for overcharged fees. As you see more episodes, the more you slowly begin to understand his modus operandi, along with some of his personal thoughts on world conflicts. In these stories, Blackjack often works in the criminal underworld, but also engages in war-stricken lands, showing that he works for anyone who is in need of medical service. How society in this series hits home, as it feels very real since nobody's perfect. The entire 3E class are kids who each have their own saddening hardships, who need a guide to feel happy and content with themselves. They have been treated as scum and wish to prove there's more to life than being pathetic losers who will never succeed in anything. This is where Koro-sensei steps in, acting as their teacher, who will help them grow not only as assassins or smarter individuals, but to develop their self-esteem. Even with the supernatural and the over-the-top assassin lessons, the heart of the series is all about being true to yourself, not being afraid of the future or failure, but to rise from those losses and finally earn a victory of self-respect.